Hello and welcome to another week of nothing new on Breath of the Wild 2. Wow, even saying there's no new news on the sequel feels old at this point. But while we've been wandering around this no news desert like a bunch of hype-starved nomads, there have been quite a few videos made by quite a few different creators across YouTube space that have served to voice the opinions of said creators regarding what we would like to see in the sequel to Breath of the Wild. You know, in the case that it should ever release. I haven't really taken part in these kinds of wishlist style videos except for when I was a part of this video from the legendary Hyrule Gamer, but that was quite a while ago. So I figured, what the heck, it's been long enough, let's talk about my thoughts regarding the sequel, since I don't think I've ever given you guys my complete opinions on the matter. But we're gonna switch it up a bit. We're not necessarily gonna talk about what I want to see happen, but rather what I don't want to see happen. So, welcome to my list of the 7 possible ways that the sequel to Breath of the Wild could be ruined. Let's get right to it. First up, I would be disappointed to see them use the exact same map with no geographical changes for Breath of the Wild 2, even though it is pretty likely that they will in fact be introducing new areas and such. I mean, just look at the caverns from the trailer. The reason why I mention this is because Mr. Aonuma did directly state that they wanted to return to the same Hyrule from Breath of the Wild, meaning there are probably plans in place to either use all or large portions of the current map of Hyrule. If for some reason Nintendo does not include any new areas, then we'd be stuck exploring the same map we've already been exploring for the past 4 years now. And unlikely as it is, I think everyone would be decently disappointed in that. This does beg the question though, where would the new areas be located? My personal opinion on the matter is a further expanded underground area actually, and you can gather a bit more info on that opinion of mine with a previous theory video I did, which I will link to in the description if you're interested. I do hope though that no matter what new areas are introduced, they won't take away from the free roam aspect that Breath of the Wild is famous for. Secondly, I'd be disappointed if they limited water movement again like they did in Breath of the Wild. You see, ever since the olden days of A Link to the Past, underwater traversal has been a staple of the Legend of Zelda series, and in Majora's Mask, completely 3-dimensional underwater swimming was introduced and has appeared in the games following, Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, with the exception of the Wind Waker, but Wind Waker made up for it by including, you know, an entire ocean, so I ain't mad. In Breath of the Wild, I legitimately did not enjoy swimming and would actually avoid getting into the water at all costs if I didn't absolutely have to. And this was for some pretty good reasons too. Not only can you not do anything under the surface of the water, but you also move cripplingly slowly and expend a hefty amount of stamina whenever you try to swim not slowly. Ultimately, the best thing you can do in the game to enhance water movement even a little bit is equip some armor that makes you swim a bit faster, but also makes you spend stamina faster as a result, making it not really a buff at all. In the sequel, if they keep water travel the same way, I'll be decently disappointed. Even if they still don't want to include underwater traversal for whatever reason, at least allow the players some way to enhance water movement, like, I don't know, water walking boots or the ability to make ice platforms. I mean quicker forming flat ice platforms, or actual true water speed buff that isn't also cancer to your stamina wheel. Something to make water great again. Thirdly, and this is a pretty common one, but I figured I'd mention it here with my own thoughts as well. I'll be disappointed if they keep weapon durability the same. Not only do weapons break in like 20 hits in Breath of the Wild, but once they gone. There's no saving or restoring a weapon's life once it has died in battle. Breath of the Wild was the first Zelda game to format its gameplay after open world adventure games like Skyrim, so it does make sense that changeable weapons and durabilities and such would be copied from these kinds of games. But do you know what those games also include in addition to durability? Repair. What a concept. I mean, come on, why does the weapon have to shatter worse than my heart on Valentine's Day 2015 whenever its durability runs out? Why not just sit unusable in your bags or decrease its damage until you can get it repaired at a blacksmith or something? This is one of the most common tropes in open world video games, and it's one that I think should 100% be implemented in Breath of the Wild if the breakable weapons return. Which, by the way, is up in the air currently since Link is shown to already have the Master Sword in the trailer. I guess we'll just have to see what happens. Number 4 is about quest rewards. I'm assuming there will be quests and side quests in the sequel, as there have been with literally every other Zelda game so far, and in so doing, I'd be very disappointed if there are still no real unique quest rewards. Think about it, in all of Breath of the Wild, across all of its many side quests, DLC quests not included, there's only one quest that I can remember that actually gives you a unique quest reward, and that is the quest to help out with the citizens of Gerudo Town and obtain the Thunder Helm. Actually, now that I think about it, there is is one other quest that lets you get the fish pants from Zora's domain, but it's literally just those 2 quests, okay? Every other quest is like, oh man, thanks for helping, here's soup, or here's an apple, or here's exactly 3 mushrooms. It's like, yeah, that's cool, thanks for the mushroom, but I could have just picked some of those up in the woods over there, but yeah, cool, thanks. There needs to be more actual, meaningful, unique quest rewards in the sequel, like actual relics or gadgets that change or augment the way you play the game, or unique weapons or armor pieces. One of the best examples of how this should work would be like the masks in Majora's Mask, just more. In the 5th place, again, this is a more common belief to share, but I'll be extremely disappointed if dungeons do not return in the sequel. And I don't mean more little mini dungeons. I mean actual, in-depth, stylized, ominous, beautiful, expansive, innovative, intricate, puzzle-filled classic Zelda dungeons. Sorry, I get a little passionate about this one. Because even though technically speaking, Breath of the Wild did have a large portion of dungeon content, more than the previous games, it was all split up and scattered throughout the map in forms of little minis called shrines and a couple slightly less minis called divine beasts that were each pretty creative but still way too short. I'd rather see the return of a few large dungeons than a few hundred minis, even if it means doing away with the mini dungeons entirely, if that makes sense. 6. I will be disappointed if Ganondorf is once again a mindless monster in the sequel. One of the biggest things I always felt was missing from Breath of the Wild and preventing it from feeling like a truly true Zelda game in its hearty heart was its lack of a villainy villain. And no, pudding monster Ganon doesn't really qualify as a villain. He's more of a force of nature, if you will. A mindless enemy that's just bent on destruction. Destruction of what, you ask? Oh, you know, just everything, really, in general. I think he's upset about life, to be honest, which, I mean, ditto, but you don't see me blowing up castles. He doesn't speak and he doesn't think. He just grosses you out and screams when he dies. We have a huge opportunity with Ganondorf that was presented to us in the trailer, and that is that he could once again be an actual, intelligent villain and give that spark of life to the sequel that I and many others always felt was missing from Breath of the Wild. He could also hydrate. Point number 6.5, 6.5. If Ganondorf doesn't hydrate, we will all be disappointed. Finally, in 7th place, I will be sorely disappointed if Link speaks. Now this is a more divisive topic since there are more people asking for Link to audibly speak these days than there ever have been before, but hear me out. It's not like Link doesn't already speak canonically in the games. He's never actually been mute as some people would call him, but rather is just one of those slower to speak and quicker to listen types of people. I mean, how else do people think the dialogue options have worked in the games? Clearly, Link does actually talk, we just simply don't hear it. And listen guys, we're about to go big brain mode here. This is the reason why Nintendo normally shies away from having their protagonists speak. Speaking and speech patterns are one of the biggest ways to judge an individual's character. It's just true. I mean, most of you listening to me right now have an image of my character in your mind that you've only been able to develop by listening to me talk. You probably think I'm some devilishly handsome buff guy, when in reality, actually that's pretty accurate anyway. If you omit someone's speech from being heard, their character can still be judged, but based off of what they do instead of what they say. It's a genius concept actually. In Link's case, his true character resounds with every player individually based off of what that player has Link do. In that way, it's virtually impossible for anyone to dislike Link, since his character will inevitably reflect, well, you. Now, that doesn't mean he's a hollow character by any means. I mean, this isn't Disney. After all, there are still canonical things Link does that make parts of his character undeniable. For instance, he's a hero, which implies several details regarding his character, like bravery and chivalry and nobility. That's not something that's debatable unless you don't complete the game, but then it's not canon anyway. But anyway, I said all of that to say that if he does actually begin to audibly talk in full sentences in the sequel, everything that has been built up into Link's character over the past 35 years that the franchise has been alive that's unique to every single Zelda fan will immediately be put in jeopardy simply because he would now have a voice. I mean, imagine if the voice actor for Link ends up giving a poor performance. Now all of a sudden we'd have his canonical voice be annoying for the rest of time. Again, this isn't Disney. And that's my list of the 7 ways to potentially ruin Breath of the Wild 2. What did you guys think? Was I just incoherently rambling the whole time and being too much of a brat, or am I onto something with these points? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, huge thanks for watching and still watching if you're hearing me say this right now. Please consider dropping a like below to get the video spread around on YouTube space, and subscribe if you haven't already for much more Nintendo content just like this. Also, humongous thanks to my supporters. Please give a warm and hearty welcome to Licon, Confused Hylian, and Clint Courtney 29, who have all generously decided to support the channel and join the ranks of my elite bandit crew. If you watching are interested in doing the same and helping the next video come to life, feel free to check out that join button located below, or follow the links to my Patreon page in the description below. Also down there are links to my social media pages, so stop on by my Twitter page to stay up to date. That's all I've got for this one, so as always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. This is MaskedNintendoBandit, keeping it real and signing out. Peace!